Governor Brown, 2 years ago, the countries of the world got together and decided to do something about climate and also agreed that they'd get together periodically and see how they were doing. You're over there right now for something of an interim report card. What is a report card? What does it tell you?
Well, first of all, it tells us that President Macron is really serious. The president of the Secretary General of the United Nations is really serious. The president of the World Bank, Mr. Kim, he's serious. In fact, I've never heard such clarity of commitment as I'm hearing at this conference. And none too soon, because the world, while it came together in Paris, is now not doing what it needs to do. The climate is still deteriorating because greenhouse gases are increasing. We're not taking the steps needed to avoid catastrophic climate change. There are many nations represented here, the island nations, that will disappear in the next 40, 50, or 60 years. This is a crime. It's a real crime against humanity, and therefore we must prevent it. And this One Day, One Planet conference is aimed to do that. And in California next September, we'll continue this convocation of particularly subnational jurisdictions, states and provinces, and corporate CEOs and others from civil society to galvanize, to mobilize our commitment against this existential threat that Donald Trump denies, that the majority of the Republican Party denies, and many of the business community, although by no means all, also deny. We got to wake people up. We got to change direction, and America, if we can't do it from the White House, we'll do it from California and New York, Washington, Vermont, and everywhere else we can go to make this transition to a low-carbon and very soon a non-carbon, zero-carbon world, because if we don't, millions of people will be at risk rather soon, and hundreds of millions will be at risk in not too many years and decades to come.
Governor, do summits such as you're attending right now in Paris move the ball forward at all in persuading people like President Trump you referred to and others who are climate deniers? Are you persuading them, or is this more people getting together who already believe it and reinforcing one another and not really reaching out to convert the others?
Well, yes, we're not going to convert Donald Trump. We're not going to convert Mitch McConnell or the Koch brothers or Mr. Ryan. They're in a cabal of denial, destructive of science. They're pulling back on research. They're trying to prevent California and other places that want to go on a renewable pathway, and they want to resurrect coal, which is dying. So that's all true. But a convocation such as this does mobilize commitment that doesn't exist before they come here. There are real financial statements that are going to be reflective of real commitments of dollars. Here, I heard just 3 this morning for West Africa, for Indonesia, and for other countries that are named. So these are real things. We're doing stuff, and we are converting people. But we've got to do it one company, one state, one nation at a time. So, yes, this isn't perfect. Yes, there are a lot of people here talking and what have you. But, damn it, the world is going in the wrong direction. It's going to hell, not to heaven. And we've got to wake people up. And just because the cynical complacency of the powerful obscures the truth, is no reason why people such as the Secretary General of the UN, the President of France, and many others from Denmark, from Sweden, from Romania, from so many other countries, the Vice Premier of China. So there are a lot of people, and there are more all the time. There's more than there was 2 years ago. So, look, it's a real battle. It's not clear we're going to win it, but I'm going to do everything that I can while I have any position of power and responsibility to move the world toward a future that is sustainable and will not be the destructive path that the cynics and those who don't understand climate science are rather stupidly moving the world toward. So, yeah, we're making progress. Is it enough? No. Is the world on the right track yet? No. But we're taking steps, and next September in San Francisco we'll have a similar conference, and we'll keep doing as long as we can, and eventually, I believe, we're going to win. The people who are on the side of truth, sustainability, and the science as we now all understand it.
Can you win, as you just put it, without the President of the United States, without the U.S. government? Can it be enough to sustain with state and local government, with a number of countries who do agree with you 100%, with the Secretary General of the UN, with a lot of private industry, not all, but a lot of private industry? Is that enough to get the job done without the President of the United States?
No, I don't think in the long run we can make this work without the president. But first of all, Trump's not going to be the president forever. That he might be out in 3 years, might be out sooner. Who knows? So this thing is much bigger than the current political noise and activity and even the hot news of the day. This is a long-term atmospheric change that will affect all living beings, all living things. There's nothing other than nuclear war or nuclear incident. There's nothing more serious than the climate challenge. And the fact that Washington, under Trump and under the new EPA head and under the Attorney General and Secretary of the Interior and the Vice President, yeah, they're all wet. They're off in a hole of denial. But the rest of the world is coming around, and America, through its states, through its corporate leadership, through its environmental organizations, through the media, we're holding the line and advancing while we're waiting for a new president and a new Congress to wake up and do what's right instead of the dark pathway that they're now pursuing.
Governor, there's a lot of progress that has been made. At the same time, there's an economic aspect of this, beyond the moral aspect. Address the economic aspect of it, particularly from the state of California. And frankly, let's bring it back to the fires that have been raging out there in Southern California. What is the economic effect on a state like California of the climate change?
Well, first of all, the economic effects of California taking the most aggressive climate actions, both by way of cap and trade, by way of regulation of appliances and buildings, by a low-carbon fuel standard, by 50% renewable portfolio standard to be effective by 2030. We're doing all that. And yet we've become the sixth largest economy in the world, $2.6 trillion. Our municipal bonds are the envy of investors everywhere. So we're making progress. But yes, climate change and the fires, in the drought, in the devastation of crops, it's costing real money. And it will continue to cost money. So we got to try to combat it and do combat it as we are. So the lesson is you can take environmental action. It improves your economy. But yes, climate change through the fires, the droughts, and soon to be the floods costs us many billions of dollars. Make no mistake about that.
Governor, as you suggest, California is on a firm footing now economically. It wasn't always so. Even when you took office, it was not in nearly as good shape. We're now looking forward to quite likely tax legislation coming out of Washington that can affect a California or right here in New York, particularly because of the deduction for state and local taxes. What is the economic effect on the engine that you've created in California if this bill goes through the way it's written right now?
Well, first of all, this is another one of these 400- or 500-page bills. Some of it is handwritten, scribbled in, and they keep changing it. They're trying to make their deals. So we're not exactly clear. Some of the Republican congressmen are working for some changes. But look, as originally drafted, it is meant to punish California for voting for Hillary Clinton. It's meant to punish New York. It's meant to punish Illinois and other states that have taken the effort to raise their state income tax. And remember, what is that for? Half of it goes to education, goes to health care, goes to public health, to combating disease. This is a terrible war on California and New York. And remember, these states that have an income tax are the engine, not the entire engine, but very critical part of America's prosperity. So, no, we're going to live through this. Higher income taxpayers are going to pay a hell of a bill. But you know what? The progressive income tax is right. And what they're doing with that tax, by giving more money to corporations that don't need it right now, more money to the richest Americans, and then already Ryan and McConnell are saying, okay, they're now going to have to pay for it by taking away health care from the poor, shorting Medicare. What are they doing here? This is class warfare at its worst, and they're feeding the economy when it's running at full tilt. This makes no economic sense and makes no political sense, not even for the Republicans. This is not going to help them. If anything will help the Democrats win one or both houses, it's this stupid tax bill that punishes the poor, the middle class, and all the Americans, the bottom 80%, if I could call it that. It's an insane idea driven by a herd of sheep that are just moving in response to an irrational call from those who are leading them. So, look, this is bad stuff, but we're going to make the best of it. And right now, Trump is creating his own demise by the extreme behavior that he's exhibiting, and the Republicans in Congress are following him. But it's not the end of the story here. We are mobilizing for the 2018, and this economy will hurt many taxpayers. It might make it harder to raise income in the future, but it's a very bad sign when states commit to state action to do good for their citizens, and then for pure politics and no economic good reason, we get punished. Well, we won't forget it, and we're going to take out those Republican congressmen if they vote for this tax monstrosity that there are almost no economists that believe in or support.
And finally, Governor, I have to ask you about Edwin Lee. We just received word a few hours ago that Edwin Lee, the mayor of San Francisco, passed away in an untimely way. I don't know any of the details, but give us your thoughts about Edwin Lee.
Look, Ed Lee was a really good guy. I knew him. I didn't know him for a long time, but he was really a politician that I think spoke the language of the people. He was down to earth. He was real, genuine, had integrity, working hard in a very difficult city that is very divided along many different lines. So he'll be missed. He was a good guy. He represented California in the city, and untimely. You know, these things happen. We all never know the time nor the hour when our time comes up. And I would just say we're going to miss Ed Lee quite a lot.